I never imagined a heart-stopping encounter would lead a billionaire to love a humble mechanic. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was just another Sunday at the shop, the sound of metal clanging and engines purring in the background. I was elbow-deep in grease when the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through. My heart raced. She walked in. Her coat glistened like the night sky, and her eyes sparkled with questions. I didn't know it then, but this was no ordinary woman. I caught a glimpse of a diamond ring on her finger, a flash of gold that whispered of riches. She scanned the room, taking in rusty tools and half-finished jobs. My hands trembled. Was she looking for help, or something more? I wiped my hands on my stained overalls, feeling like a fish out of water. I knew how to fix engines, not how to handle the likes of her. The mechanic's shop smelled of oil and sweat, but her perfume was something floral and intoxicating. I was lost in a sea of wonder and disbelief. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft. "I need assistance with my car." For a moment, I couldn't process her words. It was as if the universe had conspired to throw us together on this mundane day. When I stepped outside, the sun poured down, illuminating her luxurious car, a black beast that looked too powerful for my little shop. I felt small, insignificant, yet I was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. I glanced around me. Friends gaped, whispering amongst themselves. I could hear their approval and disbelief collide. As I popped the hood, embarrassment swelled inside me. Every inch of my life felt bare and unworthy next to this vision gleaming in all her elegance. I pushed aside thoughts of what my father would say if he saw me now. To him, I was just a mechanic. But to her I was something else. "Is it serious?" she asked, biting her lip. The worry in her eyes sliced through me. I wanted to reassure her, to pull her into my world where everything was simpler. It wouldn't take long, I just needed to tune the engine. But as I worked, the tension thickened. Someone else arrived, a tall man in a tailored suit. He stood there, arms crossed, eyebrows knitted in a perfect V. This had to be her husband. My heart sank. Would he take her away? I tried to focus. The scratching of metal against metal, the smell of gasoline mixing with that enchanting perfume, all mingled, creating a cocktail of emotions. "Lily, darling," he called out, voice dripping with authority. "What are you doing here?" The weight of his gaze bore down on me, cold, judgmental. My pulse quickened. He had the kind of presence that demanded respect and drowned out the boy from the garage. I could feel Lily's eyes on me, searching, considering. A spark of something flickered. Was it curiosity? Compassion? I needed to finish the repairs quickly. I felt the air grow colder, filled with unsaid words and emotions that were too big to grasp. Just as I tightened the last bolt, she turned to me, her expression a mix of hope and fear. "Thank you," she whispered, the sincerity hitting me like a wave. But before I could respond, the man stepped forward. "We're leaving, Lily," he snapped, irritation creeping into his voice. Her shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of his command evident. I stood frozen, hands shaking as I wiped grease from my forehead. What just happened? Did she feel the pull, or was it all in my head? She took a step back, glancing at the man, then at me. A moment stretched, poised on the edge of something thrilling and terrifying. "Can I see you again?" she asked, the question hanging in the air like an unspoken promise. And then they were gone. Just like that, the door swung shut, leaving me alone in the dim light of the garage with a million questions swirling in my mind. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The week that followed dragged on with an unbearable heaviness. Each day felt like a blur, the familiar smell of motor oil and rust serving as a constant reminder of the fleeting moment I had shared with Lily. My hands were busy, but my heart was tangled in thoughts of her, the way that glistening coat hugged her figure, the way her breath hitched when she was nervous. And most of all, the weight of the man who had taken her away from me. Every time the bell above the garage door jingled, my heart jumped, only to sink as I saw another customer instead of her. I worked through my routine, but the laughter of my friends felt distant, like echoes from a forgotten life. I found solace in the mechanics of life, the rhythm of tools in hand and engines roaring to life, but even that couldn't fill the void she had left behind. As the sun dipped lower in the sky one evening, I decided to take a break. I stepped outside, hoping to catch some fresh air. The warm breeze felt good against my skin, but it was empty, lacking the warmth of her presence. Just then, the sound of laughter broke through the dimness. My neighbor's children were playing, their giggles dancing in the air. I watched them, a small flicker of joy igniting within me. Maybe life wasn't all about the grand gestures, maybe it was in these simple moments after all. That small spark was quickly extinguished when I glanced back at my own store. There, parked just outside, was a sleek black car. My heart raced, each beat driving me closer to the presence of someone I had tried so hard to forget. I approached cautiously, expecting the worst, but my breath caught as the door swung open. Lily stepped out, looking even more radiant than I remembered. But something was off. Her smile didn't meet her eyes, and there was an added tension to her posture. I walked toward her, my heart pounding like a freight train. "Lily?" I breathed, unable to mask the hope in my voice. "Hi," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. There was a flicker of fear behind her gaze, quickly masked by a facade of strength. "Can we talk?" What could she possibly want to share with me? I nodded, motioning for her to step inside the shop. As she walked past me, that sweet scent wrapped around me again, a reminder of how close she felt yet how far apart her world was. Inside, it felt cramped as I closed the door behind us, the air thick with unspoken words. I needed to see you," she began, pressing her fingers together nervously. "Things have been complicated." The weight of her admission filled the garage. "Are you okay?" I asked, my own voice sounding almost foreign to my ears. I needed to know she was safe before anything else. She sighed, running a hand through her hair, reminiscent of a storm brewing just beneath the surface. "I'm fine, but Caleb, me fiancé, doesn't like me coming here. He thinks it's dangerous for me to be around people like you." The words hit me like ice water. People like me? The bitterness in my tone surprised even myself. "What does that mean?" Lily looked down, avoiding my gaze. "He thinks I should only surround myself with those who elevate my status." "He's not wrong," Booty didn't need to hear more. "But you're not them, are you?" I interjected, trying to rein in the anger surging within me. "You're more than just your last name, Lily. You're a person, not just a trophy." Her eyes widened, a mix of hurt and defiance sparking within them. "That's not fair." "You don't know me." "I want to," I interrupted, desperate to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. "I want to understand, but you're the one who keeps pushing me away." Just as our voices crescendoed, the door swung open with a loud bang, and in walked Caleb. The tension in the air shifted like a thunderstorm looming overhead, his presence electrifying the atmosphere with a sense of hostility. "What's going on here?" His voice was like gravel, rough and unyielding. Lily recoiled, her face paling as she shot me an apologetic look. "Caleb, please stay out of this," he interjected, fixing me with a glare that felt sharp enough to cut. "This isn't your place." That I stepped forward, anger flaring with protective instinct. "You don't get to dictate who she talks to. She deserves better." Caleb laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Better? A mechanic? Look around, this is where you belong. Lily needs someone who can give her everything, something you clearly cannot." My heart dropped. Everything I had felt was now exposed, raw beneath a microscope of judgment. I looked at Lily, but she was caught in the crossfire, her eyes wavering between us, a silent plea hanging in the air. "Lily," I said gently, my voice cracking. "You have a choice." Just as she opened her mouth to respond, Caleb stepped closer, looming over her like a dark cloud. "It's time to go. Now." And with that, she faltered, retreating into his embrace. A shiver ran through me. I had lost her again, this time not just to distance but to the suffocating chains of someone else's expectations. As they walked out, I stood frozen, heart shattered into pieces. But just before they stepped outside, Caleb turned back, his expression twisted with satisfaction. "I know about you," he said, his eyes narrowing. "I'll be watching you." The door closed, and silence enveloped me once more. The echoes of the confrontation hung in the air, wrapping around me like a shroud. I had a flicker of resolve, but it felt so fragile. She had faced the storm, and I felt utterly powerless in its wake, and then I realized I hadn't just lost Lily. I had lost a part of myself when I let her go. The days that followed were a dissonance of despair and bitterness. The shop became my refuge and my prison. I found myself working longer hours, each turn of the wrench a futile attempt to extract the thumping ache from my chest. It wasn't that I didn't take pride in my work, I loved it. But every rev of the engine resonated with the truth that Lily was slipping further away, encapsulated in a world that I could never reach. Most nights, I left the garage after dark, the dim streetlights casting long shadows that felt like ghosts haunting my every step. I saw countless couples laughing and holding hands, and I could only think of the one who belonged in my arms but was locked away in a life designed to keep us apart. It was a bleak existence, punctuated with moments of hope that felt more like cruel reminders of what I could never have. One Friday night, as I turned to close the shop, an unexpected sound broke through the monotony, the distant thrum of music. I stepped outside, drawn to the energy spilling from a local bar across the street. On a whim, I decided to indulge in the chaos, hoping that a drink might blur the ache in my heart. As I entered, the weight of the world seemed to lighten momentarily. The air was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, and for a moment, I allowed myself to be swept away by the vibrant atmosphere. I ordered a drink and nestled into a corner, watching as people danced and celebrated around me. It felt like watching a dream I could no longer participate in, but then, a voice pierced through my thoughts, warm yet edged with an unmistakable tension. "Hey! Isn't that?" I turned my head to follow the gaze of a nearby group, and my heart sputtered. There, in the dim light of the bar stood Lily. Her elegance was amplified by the casual glow of the moment, a stark contrast to the heaviness I carried. Beside her, Caleb loomed like a shadow, his posture domineering and possessive. The difference in their presence was undeniable. She shone like a beacon even as his darkness threatened to engulf her. With every laugh and smile she shared, it felt as if she were slipping further away. I expected anger to overcome me, but instead, I felt a deep sorrow, a wistful longing for the girl I once knew, unfettered and alive. When she caught my gaze, her smile faltered, replaced by something raw and unguarded. Before Caleb's attention redirected her, I wanted to get up, to approach her, to remind her of the person she was before her world became a gilded cage. But as I looked into her eyes, I realized she was still trapped, desperately seeking a way to reclaim herself while tethered to someone who saw her as nothing more than an accessory. Before I could collect my thoughts, I felt a hand clasp my shoulder, almost jolting me from the reverie. It was Mia, a regular at the shop who had often brightened my spirits with her relentless optimism. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "You look like you need a friend." I opened my mouth to retort, to say I was fine, but the familiar ache surged anew. "Just trying to distract myself," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper, shame flooding my cheeks. Her gaze followed mine, understanding dawning as she noticed Lily and Caleb. "Well, it seems the distraction is only making things worse." She leaned in closer, her voice low. "But you can't give up on her. There's something in the way you look at her, and it's like she feels it too, even if she can't show it." I swallowed hard, considering her words. What if I'm too late? What if it's hopeless? Then don't let it be. "You can't let her go without giving it your all," Mia urged fiercely. People like Lily, they sometimes need someone who sees them for who they really are. The conviction in her voice stirred something within me. I nodded slowly, but doubt still clung to me like a shadow. I watched as the moments unfolded. Lily appeared to laugh, but her eyes were clouded, and Caleb pulled her closer, his grip tightening possessively. My heart twisted at the lost connection, just as I was about to lose myself again in the melancholy. A commotion erupted in front of the bar. A group of patrons had begun to argue, fists clenched and voices raised. Instinctively, I stood, heart racing as the tension escalated. From my place at the back, I noticed Caleb's gaze narrow, his attention shifting from Lily to the unfolding chaos with a predatory intensity. Lily stood by, her expression a fragile mix of concern and frustration. "Caleb, let's go," she said nervously, trying to pull him back. But his eyes remained fixed on the potential fight, excitement sparking in his gaze. It was as if losing control thrilled him, and it suddenly clicked: the man she was with thrived on power, and he only saw Lily as a plaything to manipulate. That I felt the fire ignite in me, roaring to life at the thought of her vulnerability in his grasp. Without thinking, I pushed through the crowd, determination propelling me closer to her. "Lily," I called as I approached, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze fall upon us, 2 worlds colliding in the midst of chaos. Her eyes locked onto mine, an electric recognition pulsing between us, while Caleb turned, the fervor of his attention shifting toward me like a predator assessing a rival. "What do you want?" he sneered, possessiveness dripping from his words. "That I want her to be free," I yelled back, the fervor rising in my voice. "You don't own her." The world around us dimmed, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. In that moment, time seemed suspended. The tension between us crackled like electricity. I locked eyes with Lily, and I knew in that instant, there was more at stake than just us. And then, without warning, Caleb lunged, and everything exploded into chaos. There was no turning back now. A wrong move could unravel everything, but the truth remained: I had to fight for her, even if it shattered the bonds that had held her captive for so long. The air thickened with tension as chaos erupted around us. Caleb lunged forward with a primal instinct, and I instinctively stepped between him and Lily, my body thrumming with a desperate resolve. My heart raced not just from fear, but from the knowledge that every second mattered. The stakes had never been higher. As Caleb's fist swung toward me, I dodged, adrenaline flooding my system. A roar of cheers and gasps from the crowd surged, feeding Caleb's ego as he charged again, his movements fueled by anger and a sense of entitlement. I felt the heat of his rage against my skin, but more than that, I felt the desperate need to shield Lily, a need that eclipsed my own fear. "Get out of my way," he spat, pushing me aside like a mere obstacle. But this time, I stood firm, aware that letting him push me back meant letting him claim dominion over her life once more. "This is none of your business, it's everything to me," I shouted, my voice barely carrying over the tumult of the bar. The pain in my chest flared with each word. This wasn't just about being a hero, it was about reclaiming the future that had never been truly ours. "She deserves better than this." Around us, patrons began to crowd, forming a circle, eyes wide, phones raised, recording the moment as if our lives had become a spectacle. But this was no carnival, this was a battlefield, where the love I had for Lily was clashing against the suffocating grip Caleb held on her life. Caleb cursed, eyes blackening with fury, and lunged again, fists flying. It was a blur of motion and instinct. I ducked his fists and countered, striking back, a flurry of desperation. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just a fistfight, it was a fight for her very soul. Then, through the raging storm, I saw Lily. She stood, rooted to the spot, fear etched across her face. Our eyes locked, and in that fleeting moment, I saw the glimpse of the vibrant girl I used to know, the one who danced with laughter and lived without shackles. But Caleb's shadow loomed large, and I could see his grip around her tightening, squeezing the light from her like a vice. With my focus half on Caleb and half on her, I tried to reach her, to let her know I was here, fighting not just for her but alongside her. I dropped the anger for a fleeting second and let my gaze soften. "Lily, you're not alone," I urged through the chaos, desperate to draw her back from the abyss. For an instant, I thought I saw something shift in her eyes, a flicker of recognition, a tentative spark of hope amidst the storm that threatened to drown her. But then Caleb surged forward once more, his rage choking out that spark. "Stop looking at her!" he yelled, drawing back his fist not for another punch, but to hurl a taunt that would cut deeper than any blow. "You think you're her savior? You're nothing but a mechanic. She deserves more than you, someone who can give her the world, not grease-stained hands and a broken heart." The words landed like a punch of their own, but I couldn't allow them to take root. I understood his twisted logic, the way he saw money as power and her as an ornament to display. But that was not who Lily was, nor was it who she wanted to be. I could see it in the way her shoulders slumped, the fight in her dimming eye. In that moment, as Caleb pressed his advantage, I understood something crucial: the battle was not solely mine to fight. This wasn't just about me stepping up in her defense, it was about awakening her courage, igniting her will to fight for herself. "Lily!" I cried out, my heart pounding violently against my ribs. "Choose freedom over confinement. You have the power to take a stand." Something shifted. She stepped forward, eyes blazing with a mixture of defiance and the remnants of fear. "Caleb, I'm done being your puppet," she declared, and for an instant, the soft sound of hope filled the air, drowning out the raucous bar. Caleb's face twisted in disbelief, and he looked between her and me as if the very world was shattering around him. But before he could retaliate, she took one step closer to me, her strength unmistakably returning. "Lily," I whispered. Almost as if we had dodged the reality of our circumstances, "you can do this," and then, just as we shared an electric moment, a loud crash echoed from behind us. The crowd surged forward, cheers erupting as someone else attempted to break up the fight. A bouncer, barrel-chested and furious, charged in with the authority of a storm, flanked by a couple of his friends. "Let's go, all of you!" he yelled, grabbing Caleb by the collar and jerking him away. "This isn't what you came for." Just as Caleb was dragged back, his fiery gaze locked onto me, and fury seethed behind his eyes. "This isn't over," he spat, venomously. "You think you can take her from me? It'll ruin you." My stomach plummeted at his words, an unspoken threat that hung heavily in the air. But as the bouncer continued to usher him outside, I looked over at Lily, expecting to see relief, but instead found uncertainty flickering in her eyes. As the crowd began to wane and whispers of the fight engulfed the room, our gazes tangled once more, the space between us rife with fear and possibility. "Lily, what do we do now?" I asked, the question hanging like a fragile thread. And that's when it happened, a shocking revelation that sliced through the air, bringing everything to a freeze. "You don't understand," she said, voice trembling. "Caleb, he's not who you think he is." Before she could finish, the door slammed shut behind Caleb, and it echoed ominously, leaving us hanging on the precipice of something monumental. I could feel the weight of her words curl around us, and the truth remained suspended in the stagnant air, a storm waiting to break. Something unfathomable was brewing, a truth that could shake the very foundation of our lives, and I had to prepare for its impact. The bar's energy buzzed with the remnants of chaos as people filtered away, their excitement lingering like the scent of stale beer in the air. I turned my attention back to Lily, where a heavy silence enveloped us. Her trembling lips struggled to form the words that hung in the delicate balance of the moment, each syllable laden with tremors of unspoken truths. "Caleb, he's not who you think he is." Her voice dropped again, barely above a whisper, as if the truth itself was too fragile to bear. There was an urgency in her tone, a plea hidden within the folds of her hesitation. "What do you mean?" I urged gently, feeling my heart race not only from the night's turmoil but from the dawning realization that this moment, this fragile intersection of our lives, was pivotal. "What are you hiding?" She glanced around, her eyes darting nervously toward the exit before fixating back on mine. "It's not just about his anger, or how he treats me, he's involved in things far deeper than you realize." Before I could respond, the bouncer who had intervened returned, clearly still rattled from the preceding incident. "Hey, are you two all right?" he asked, concern etching lines into his forehead. "Yeah, we're fine," I assured him, though I felt anything but. The bouncer nodded but lingered, as if sensing the weight of our conversation. This isn't a place for you to stay if you're in trouble. You should. I'm not leaving, Lily interjected suddenly, stepping closer to me, her defiance radiating like a beacon. I won't let Caleb control my life any longer. A flicker of admiration shone in the bouncer's eyes as he nodded, respectful of her newfound resolve. Just be careful. He's not just a guy with anger issues, he runs with a crowd that can be dangerous. If you need help, well, be okay, I interrupted, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my palm, hoping it would reassure her more than my words ever could. Once the bouncer left, the ice-cold remnants of the fight began to thaw, yet a different chill settled in the space between us. Lily, I pressed, taking a step closer, what do you mean by dangerous? You can tell me. We can face it together. She hesitated, as if wrestling with the words lingering at the back of her throat. Finally, with a deep, quaking sigh that seemed to pull from somewhere deep within, she said, Caleb's family, they're wealthy, yes, but their wealth comes from things that can't be spoken of lightly. Money used to manipulate and silence. Her words unfurled like an ominous flag, each syllable edifying the encounter outside into something much darker. You mean he's involved in threats? Illegal activities? My mind raced with implications. Yes, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't keep looking away. He has connections that reach into places we wouldn't even fathom. I tried to ignore them, live my life, but every day it's like I'm one step closer to becoming part of that twisted world that I wanted to reach out, to pull her close and tell her how much I wanted to protect her from everything. But the foundations of my world felt threatened, and the ground beneath me seemed shaky. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, guilt flooding my chest. I could have helped you. I didn't want to drag you into this, she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You deserve better. You're a good person, and I thought maybe if I could just get away from Caleb, it would all go away. I thought I could escape. That was never an option, I replied, wounded by her words. You're not alone in this. I'm here, no matter what. Just as the moment threatened to bond us with the intensity of shared fears, an explosion of laughter echoed from a table across the bar, momentarily shattering the fragile atmosphere. We both turned toward the sound, only to see a group of Caleb's friends staggering back into the bar, their demeanor chaotic yet buoyant like nothing from earlier was amiss. That it hit me hard that this was Caleb's world. I looked back at Lily, noting the break in her expression, a hint of fear shadowing her once bright determination. What if they know? What if they've come back to find us? Then we need to go, she replied, steel creeping into her voice, revealing the raw fight within her. But before we could make a move, one of Caleb's friends spotted us and called out, Hey Lily. His jovial tone stood stark against the reality we had just faced. Caleb's looking for you, you can't stay away forever. She flinched at his voice, an echo of the fear she had tried to suppress coming to the surface once more. We need to move, I insisted, my grip tightening on her wrist, but as we turned to leave the bar's threshold, a hand suddenly grabbed my shoulder. I looked back to see one of Caleb's friends standing closer now, a sly smile barely containing the mischief in his eyes. Leaving so soon? The night is just getting started, his words dripped with an ominous charm that sent a shiver racing down my spine. Lily sulked back slightly, anxiety knitting her brows together, but I stood unwavering, fueling my resolve to protect her. As I turned back to face the doorway, uncertainty lingering in the air, I wondered how far Caleb was willing to go to keep her in his grasp, and if there was a storm brewing that neither Lily nor I could fully comprehend. And just as we stepped through the door, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, the screen lighting up with a message that would change everything. You have something that belongs to me. It's time to pay your debts, mechanic. My heart plummeted, realization dawning that our battles were far from over. The night had just begun, and the darkness that loomed over us only deepened, casting shadows on what lay ahead. As we stumbled into the night, the cool air washed over us like a rush of sanity breaking through the chaos that just unfolded. The city's vibrant pulse felt dull against the background of our fears, but my heart raced louder than the distant thrum of music echoing from the bar. The text loomed in my mind, a jagged thought that sliced through any whispers of hope. What just happened in there? Lily's voice quivered, her hand tightening around mine as we navigated the darkened street. Her eyes were wide, flickering with emotions I could only guess athope, fear, confusion. "Nothing we can't handle," I murmured, forcing a smile that felt shaky. I wanted to believe my own words, but the weight of the situation was sinking heavily into my chest. "Let's find somewhere safe to talk." That we stepped into the quietude of the alley beside the bar, the shadows wrapping around us like a cocoon. The distant sounds of the city faded as I turned to face her, the gravity of her situation pressuring every word caught in my throat. "Lily, we need to figure out what this message means." "Are they serious?" "I don't know." She shot back, frustration spilling into her tone. "But I do know that Caleb doesn't just play games. His world is built on threats that hover dangerously close to my life." I squeezed her hand tighter. "We can stick together. I don't care about consequences." My voice faltered, the air thick with the words I couldn't say. What if things escalated beyond my control? Before I could think further, the sound of footsteps echoed against the pavement, growing closer. My instincts flared, and I pulled Lily back against the bricks, shielding her with my body. Peering around the corner, I saw two figures sauntering idly toward us, their faces obscured by shadows. Her breath caught in her throat, and I felt her trembling. "Caleb's friends?" I nodded, clenching my jaw as they came into view. Two guys we didn't recognize, but their swagger suggested allegiance. It was too risky to stay here. "Let's go," I urged, guiding her back towards the street as we slipped away into the narrow path of light cast by a flickering lamppost. Before I could exhale, however, my phone buzzed again in my pocket, demanding my attention. My heart beat rapidly as I pulled it out. The screen glinted with another message, this time from an unknown number. "You truly think you can protect her? You have no idea what's coming." "What is it?" Lily asked, her brow furrowed as she peered at my screen. I hesitated, reluctant to share the darkness now shadowing our escape. "It's nothing," I lied, slipping the phone back into my pocket. But I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had begun to intertwine with forces far stronger than our will. Tonight felt like an endless chase, two lost souls running from shadows that seemed to reach for us in the periphery. We walked side by side, searching for sanctuary, but the city felt claustrophobic, each corner whispering of danger. A flicker of neon caught my eye, an open diner, its sign flashing welcome amidst the chaos. I nudged Lily in that direction, and as we entered, the aromas of coffee and greasy plates enveloped us, a strangely comforting contrast to the turmoil brewing outside. The diner was sparsely populated, allowing us a modicum of privacy in the corner booth. As we slid onto the vinyl seats, the waitress approached with a cautious smile, her energy palpable even in the dim light. "What can I get you two?" "Coffee, please," Lily replied, her fingers nervously tapping the table. Her usual spark was dimmed, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily upon her. As I waited, my mind drifted, trying to process the swirling storm of Caleb's world and the message that clung to the edges of my consciousness. I couldn't let fear win. I needed to be a beacon for Lily, someone who could weather the storm alongside her. "Just think, once we figure this out, we can go far away from here, from all of it," I whispered, struggling to give her glimmers of hope amidst the gathering shadows. "I promise I'll help you find that life, wherever it may be." "Do you really mean that?" Her eyes searched mine, as if looking for certainty in the face of the unknown. "More than anything," I replied earnestly, my heart clenching around my words. Just as I leaned closer, trying to offer her comfort, my phone vibrated harshly against the table, a jarring reminder of the haunting uncertainty lingering in our lives. The waitress glanced up, her curious gaze switching to me as I fumbled to silence it, but she didn't say anything. "Are you okay?" Lily asked, concern etching patterns across her features. "I will be," I said, forcing a smile. But my heart dropped again as the screen illuminated my hand, another message waiting to coalesce into meaning. "Come meet me, or I'll ensure Caleb finds you first." The words clawed at me, and I felt the blood drain from my face. My voice barely a whisper, I managed to utter, "Lily, we're in deeper than I thought." Her expression shifted, dread settling into her features as she leaned towards me, my phone cradled between us like a ticking time bomb. The gravity of this revelation felt unbearably thick, and I realized that fear had morphed into something insidious, curling around us like the smoke of an impending fire. "That I don't want to drag you into this," she pleaded, her eyes shimmering with anguish. "But I can't keep running either." Before I could respond, a familiar voice shattered the fragile sanctuary of our booth. "Lily, there you are." We turned in unison to find Caleb standing in the entrance, his presence overwhelming, like a storm cloud darkening the horizon. The laughter and chaos of the night faded, replaced by an intimidating tension that crackled in the air between us. My heart sank as I locked eyes with him, realizing that our brief respite had come to an end. Together, we would face whatever came next, but the question loomed larger than life: how would we survive the consequences of decisions we hadn't yet made? As Caleb strode towards us, the air shifted, charged with an unspoken energy that reverberated through the diner. His confident gait and piercing gaze turned the morning's warmth into a chill, one that promised to envelop us in ice. I felt Lily's body tense beside me, fear rippling through her from a silent acknowledgement of the storm that approached. "Caleb," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos stirring within. "What are you doing here?" He smirked, an unsettling blend of arrogance and menace. "Well, I figured you two lovebirds could use some company. Rumors have a way of traveling fast, especially when they involve a little trouble." He glanced at Lily, whose eyes flickered with a mixture of defiance and dread. "And I can tell this one is knee-deep in it." "Leave her alone," I snapped, instinctually placing a hand protectively over hers, as if I could shield her from the looming shadow of his presence. "We don't want any part of whatever game you're playing," Caleb chuckled darkly, stepping closer, each movement calculated and purposeful. "Oh, but you already are part of the game, aren't you? You just don't know the rules yet." His words hung between us like an invisible barrier, prickling against my skin. I had expected confrontation, but this felt different. It was a brazen ultimatum disguised as casual banter. Behind him, the waitress hovered nervously, as if sensing the brewing tension about to boil over. "Don't you see? Her life is at stake," Caleb continued, his voice low and persuasive. "And you think you can pull her away from this? From me? You're naive, and am more than happy to enlighten you both." Lily squeezed my hand as I tried to maintain my composure. "I won't be manipulated by you, Caleb," she stated with surprising firmness for someone teetering at the edge of desperation. "You don't control me." His smile widened, a sharp edge appearing in his demeanor. "Fighting me won't save you, Lily. I'm the one holding all the cards. But you." He turned his gaze toward me, as if appraising my worth. "You have potential. If you want to keep her out of my reach, I suggest you start thinking strategically. What do you want from us?" I challenged, the tremor in my voice betraying my uncertainty. Every instinct told me to run, but running would mean leaving Lily vulnerable, something I refused to do. Caleb's expression shifted, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "I don't think you understand the stakes here. If you don't start making choices that favor me, it'll show you just how cruel my side can be. And trust me, I don't want to hurt her, at least, not yet." Each word he uttered clawed at my resolve, tightening the knots of fear in my stomach. I had thought I could shelter Lily, be her sanctuary against everything encroaching on her life. But here I was, caught in an intricate web spun by a man who wielded power with a bitter grin. "What can we do?" I asked finally, desperation bleeding into my voice. "Well, do anything." The glint in Caleb's eyes darkened, a predator-smelling opportunity. "Meet me where it all began. Midnight at the old docks. You're going to find out just how deep this rabbit hole goes." His gaze fixed on Lily, the tension in the air crackling with unspoken threats. "And remember, if you don't show well, let's just say you won't have to worry about remaining unscathed anymore." Before I could retort, he turned on his heel, sauntering away with the kind of nonchalance that incited my fury. "Lily," I began, feeling the tremors of anxiety crawl up my spine. "We can't go there." She looked at me, her eyes shimmering with fear yet also a flicker of resolve. "We have to. If we don't confront him, we'll be running forever, haunted by the specter of his threats. I can't keep doing this. That I understand, but there has to be another way. We can find help." She interrupted, shaking her head violently. We can't rely on anyone but ourselves. After everything, you should know that by now. The truth of her frustration pierced through me, and I felt my heart clash against my ribs. Another fight was brewing, not just with Caleb but between us, fueled by the strains of desperation we both faced. The waitress returned with our coffee, interrupting the whirlwind of emotions swirling around us. She placed the cups in front of us, her brows drawn in concern. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, we're fine," I replied, forcing a smile that felt utterly foreign. Lily looked at the steaming cup before her, and for a moment, I saw a glimmer of the light she used to carry. "Maybe we're not fine," she admitted quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "But I don't want to lose you." The vulnerability in her words cast a deeper shadow over the diner. The walls began to close in as the gravity of our predicament crushed down like a weight pressing between us. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together," I promised, the air thickening with unfulfilled prophecies. But even as I spoke, doubts gnawed at me, Caleb's threats clawing at my insides, and the uncertainty of what awaited at those docks. As we sat in silence, the diner fading around us, I could feel the harsh reality creeping back. It was a dark place that loomed, a heated confrontation with not only Caleb but with the choices that drove us here, choices we still had yet to make. But before I could voice my next thoughts, Lily's phone buzzed aggressively against the table, jolting my mind back from the precipice of despair. We both stared as she picked it up, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "What is it?" I asked, eyes raking over her pale features. "It's a video," she whispered, and everything inside me froze as I peered over to see the screen illuminating her face with the macabre glow of Caleb's twisted game, and just like that, our wandering lives converged upon a singular moment. The realm of consequence was reaching out, pulling us down into its depths, draining the light as we summoned the courage and resolve to face what lay ahead. Yet how could we prepare for the reveal that would come next? The feeling of dread built in my chest, whispering that no matter how far we had come, Caleb was still the puppeteer pulling the strings, and we were merely caught in his performance. The diner felt like a cage, the walls closing in with the revelation of that video. I could see the panic reflected in Lily's eyes as she scanned the screen, her breath hitching in her throat. I leaned closer, straining to catch a glimpse of whatever nightmare Caleb had orchestrated this time. "It's from last night," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He recorded us when we were arguing at the park." My stomach churned as the video played out on her phone, the intimate details of our conflict now exposed to the world, weaponized by Caleb's malice. Laughter erupted in the background as I recognized familiar voices, those of friends from our past, twisted and distorted in the light of Caleb's manipulation. They were gloating over our pain, feasting on our vulnerabilities like vultures over carcasses. Oh no. I shook my head, desperate to grasp the shards of control I was losing. "This can't be happening." Lily's face was ashen, tears edging the corners of her eyes. "This is what he meant. He's showing everyone that we're weak. That we can't even protect ourselves, let alone each other." I swallowed hard, my throat dry and constricted. The weight of Caleb's reach felt far too real, his ability to tear our lives apart with nothing but a clever recording. The very foundations of our trust began to tremble. We were no longer merely two people grappling with an ominous force, we were the subjects of ridicule, stripped bare in front of our community. "You'll make it right," I said, though it sounded empty even to my own ears. I felt the shift in our world but struggled to comprehend its magnitude. "He'll find a way to fix this," but Lily didn't respond. Instead, she reached for my hand, a small gesture that packed an emotional punch. It was an unspoken plea, a reminder of what we were fighting for. "Caleb won't stop, will he?" Her voice broke, the weight of her realization crashing down upon us. I squeezed her hand tighter, the warmth of her touch sending a shiver of resolve through me. "He won't," I admitted, though each word felt like treachery against optimism. "But we can't let him define us. We're still us, Lily. And we aren't done fighting." She nodded slowly, her heart wavering between the love we held and the fear that seeped into everything we touched. The waitress returned, her eyes darting nervously between us. "Is everything all right?" she asked again, and I hated the sympathy I saw in her gaze. "Just need a moment," I replied, forcing a smile while inwardly I felt like crumbling. Lily removed her hand from mine and picked up the cup of coffee, her fingers trembling. "We have to go," she said decisively, not waiting for my response. "We can't stay here like this." That I nodded, standing as she went to pay the bill. My thoughts raced. Every step I took felt heavier, burdened with the weight of indecision. We hadn't made it through all of this just to let Caleb's darkness seep into our lives. I could feel his presence lingering over us, shadowing every thought, every hope. Outside, the world felt strangely quiet, as if the air had thickened with dread, and yet everywhere I looked there were hints of kindness, neighbors helping each other, children laughing on the swings, couples entwined in shared banter. Part of me marveled at their innocence. Didn't they know what was coming? How quickly everything could change. What now? I asked as we walked side by side, her silence echoing the uncertainty in my heart. "That I think we need to meet him," she said after a pause, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We have to confront him, to show him we won't back down. We need to take away his power." "Lily," I hesitated, grasping for the right words. "It could be dangerous. What if he has something else planned?" The pit in my stomach had widened into a chasm. "That I am tired of running," she said, her voice steady but her eyes brimming with an ocean of fear. "I can't lose you to this anymore. Caleb's choices, his games, they risk everything. We have to meet him at the docks." That I pressed my lips together, knowing she was right, but each word I hoped to say felt stuck in my throat, choked by anxiety. "Tonight, yes. Midnight." As the clock inched closer to that hour, I drove us back to our little home. The space felt different, somehow haunted by the shadows of moments that had turned warm and safe now turned into something foreboding. Every creak of the floorboards echoed Caleb's threats, amplifying the insecurities swelling within. That we gathered what little strength we had left, preparing for whatever the night brought. While packing my small backpack, I caught glimpse of her familiar blue jacket hanging by the door. It was a simple piece of clothing, yet it carried the vestiges of who she was: the warmth, the laughter, the love. But when I reached for it, I noticed the metallic glint tucked into the pocket. A bit of silver, perhaps a keychain we'd both forgotten. I pulled it out, letting it hang in the palm of my hand. The memory wrapped around us, reminded us of brighter days spent roaming the coast, hearts light and carefree. Just as the memories wove themselves around me, Lily's phone buzzed again, this time far more aggressively. She snatched it up, her expression swiftly transforming into a mask of raw disbelief. "What is it?" I asked, sensing the impending storm within her. Her face paled as she read the message. An image flashed on the screen that made my heart race. It was Caleb, standing by the docks, flanked by shadows. But the email didn't just contain the image, it had words: a chilling message: "You'll regret facing me. This is just the beginning. Here's a reminder of where you stand." The message attached an emoji, a live clip of someone bound and gagged, the shadows dancing around them eerily. I leaned closer, desperation clawing at my chest. "Who is that?" Lily whispered, her voice brimming with fear, but before I could answer, the finality of Caleb's cruel intent sank in, knocking the breath from my lungs. This wasn't just a game anymore. The stakes were higher than we'd ever realized, and suddenly, the docks didn't seem like a confrontation but a grave, sinister playground, one in which the twisted pleasure of my rival had become a palpable nightmare. The choice was out of our hands. We were thrust into a fight for survival, and time was slipping away. "That we have to warn someone," I gasped, panic flooding my voice. But deep down, I knew. Caleb wouldn't let us leave, not without his twisted game giving everything it had, and neither would we find safety in the world we thought we understood. Too late. "We go tonight," Lily said, voice firm as she pocketed her phone. But how could we prepare for the chilling revelation that awaited us at the docks? Each step toward midnight was a descent into darkness, a world where uncertainty became our only companion. And as the clock ticked towards that fateful hour, I realized with a sinking heart that our lives hung in a precarious balance, poised on the edge of Caleb's cruel designs. The air in the car felt electric as we drove in silence, my knuckles white around the steering wheel. Each passing streetlight flickered like a warning, casting eerie shadows across Lily's face. The once comforting hum of the engine now sounded ominous, amplifying our shared anxiety. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us, suffocating in its intensity. "Are you sure we should do this?" I asked, my voice trembling as I stole a glance at her. Her resolve was dazzling, yet beneath it lay a very real vulnerability that both terrified and reassured me. "I mean, what if he's waiting for us?" Lily's gaze remained fixed ahead, her jaw set tight. "If we don't face him now, we'll be living in fear forever." "I can't do that." "Not anymore." Her bravery ignited something in me, a flicker of hope that perhaps we could seize control of our lives once more, if only for tonight. The docks were looming closer, shrouded in mist, where even the air felt heavy with foreboding. As we arrived, I parked the car in a dimly lit spot near the entrance, the sound of water lapping against the dock underscoring our escalating dread. The salty scent of the sea mingled with the panic rising in my throat that we stepped out, and the chill of the night wrapped around us, a cold reminder of the game Caleb was playing. "Take a deep breath," I whispered, turning to Lily, who had stopped to take in the scene before us. Her eyes darted around, scanning for shadows that would betray Caleb's sinister presence. "Right," she murmured, exhaling slowly but her composure faltering. The transformation of our horror into an act of faith felt precarious and fragile, like walking a tightrope about to snap. That we advanced towards the water, my heart pounding in a rhythm matched only by the relentless waves. Suddenly, a rustling caught my attention, an echoing footstep that felt too close for comfort. I shot my gaze to Lily, her expression stark as she tightened her grip on her phone, ready to capture anything that might come. "Let's split up," I suggested hesitantly, a gut feeling urging me to rethink the plan. "We can cover more ground that way." "No," she replied, fear blooming in her eyes. "We stay together. Always." That small declaration anchored me, tethering my rising panic to her steadfast heart. I nodded, pushing down the instinct to protect her by distancing myself. Together, we were stronger, though the thought twisted in my stomach that a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and foreboding. Caleb stood before us, the moonlight dancing over him, painting his face with an almost ethereal glow like a predator unfurling its wings. "You actually came," he drawled, his voice smooth yet laced with wicked amusement. "Let them go, Caleb," Lily demanded, her voice steady, the tone sharp enough to slice through the tension. "This isn't a game anymore. But you've already played so well. You can't expect a grand finale to be without a little chaos, can you?" He stepped forward, malicious delight lining his features as he leaned into the light, revealing the same cold satisfaction I loathed. "Where are they?" I said, heat rushing behind my tone, an instinct to defend coming forth. "What have you done?" "I've merely invited friends for an intimate performance," he shrugged, his demeanor effortlessly casual, even as dread washed over us in waves. "If you want to save them, you'll need to prove your devotion." Impressive love stories often come at a great cost. The panic intensified, each word striking like sharpened blades. "You have no right to hurt anyone else," I spit out, though doubt clawed at the corners of my resolve. "Right?" he mused mockingly. "Right has nothing to do with power. You should know that by now. Let them go." Lily shouted, desperation creeping into her voice, yet my heart leaped at the sound of her strength. Caleb laughed, a sound that echoed unnaturally through the night. "It's already too late for that, I'm afraid. But don't worry, this is where things get interesting." His fingers danced on his phone, and a small screen flickered to life beside him. The image displayed was one I never thought I'd see bound. Figure inside a dimly lit room flickering over a flickering video feed. "Stop!" I cried, but my voice felt lost in the wind. Lily gasped, her breath hitching as she stumbled back. It was as if all brilliance drained from her face, leaving only ghostly white skin that seemed to glow in horror, fear holding back the light in her eyes. "Who is that?" she whispered, the question hanging heavy, a daunting weight between us, but my throat felt lost, the name curling at the back of my mind, the identity of the captive threatening to unravel my very existence. I had to fight against the rising tide of despair before it engulfed us both, yet Caleb's smirk mocked me, an affront to the hope we clung to. "Her name is Carla," he revealed, snapping the very air from my lungs. A bite of recognition mixed with bile flooded my senses. Carla was, my sister. Nothing prepared me for this surreal black hole of revelation. The docks, the confrontation. This was never about just Lily and me. It had always been a game designed to tear us apart, manipulate our deepest fears. Now, Caleb purred, eyes bright with cruel amusement, let's see what you're willing to sacrifice to save her. The reality struck hard, igniting chaos within my spirit. I felt helpless, and a wild desperation clawed its way out of me, yet I was ensnared by an emotional tempest that threatened to consume everything. Lily reached for my hand, panic morphing into something fierce. "Well, get her back, I promise," she breathed fiercely, the strength in her voice igniting a flicker of fight within me, and right then, I knew we were not done confronting the darkness. But as I looked into Caleb's smug eyes, watching my world unravel piece by piece, I felt a terrifying instinct rise within me. The stakes had morphed into something more significant, calling on all our strength to reclaim not just our lives, but the essence of love that gave breath to our hope. Yet as Caleb's laughter twined with the howling wind, I understood we were about to wade deeper into waters murkier than we could comprehend. Time ticked on mercilessly as I leaned into the storm, readying myself for the impossible choice that lay ahead. Would we rise from ashes or drown in the fire Caleb set ablaze? As the wind howled like a wretched beast, the looming darkness of the night felt heavier than before. The reality of the moment hit me. Carla was in Caleb's clutches. I struggled to process the gravity of the situation, my mind racing as I stood shoulder to shoulder with Lily, a figure I'd come to cherish despite the tempest around us. I felt her warmth beside me and clung to that flicker of hope. Caleb's laughter hung in the air, mocking and cold. "You think you can save her so easily? Love doesn't come without a price, my friend, and I hope you're ready to pay." His eyes gleamed with malice. I took a step forward, heart thundering in my chest. "What do you want?" I demanded, forcing steadiness into my voice. "You want money? You want something from me?" "Just let her go," a true lover sacrifices, Caleb sneered. "She's in a cage made of your failures, and the only way to free her is to confront the truth of your relationship with Lily. What are you willing to give up?" A dread pooled in my stomach. The truth hung like a specter, taunting us just out of reach. It took a moment to find my voice. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," I said. "But you won't twist that into leverage. If it's a game you want, then I will play, but on my terms." Lily squeezed my hand tighter, determination sparking in her eyes. "We're not backing down," she added fiercely. "If you think you can manipulate our love for your dirty games, you're mistaken." Caleb raised an eyebrow, surprised by the fire in her response. "Then welcome to the real world, lovers. Here, the strongest survive, and love. Well, love can get cruel." He took a step back, peering into the shadows that lurked behind him. "I suggest you take your time to think about what you value the most." As I stared into his eyes, something shifted within me. I wouldn't let him break me. I shot a glance towards Lily, our bond cemented by unwavering resolve. The truth was no longer about just saving Carla or facing Caleb. It was about user hearts, our dreams. "Let her go," I said to him, my voice unwavering. "And stop dragging my sister into this." A flicker of something grounded in Caleb's eyes, but it was fleeting, like a candle in the wind. The moment new silence engulfed us, as if the universe was inviting us to speak that unspoken truth. I turned to Lily. "Whatever he's asking, we will face it together," I said, letting the words hang in the chasm of tension we'd created. She nodded, her expression unwavering. Together, Caleb rolled his eyes, the facade of indifference slipping away. "You're about to realize how misplaced your faith is." Just then, the shadows behind him shifted, revealing two figures stepping out of the darkness, two men roughly holding my sister between them, her eyes wide with terror. "Stop!" I shouted, despair clawing at my heart. She struggled against her captors, but their grip was iron. "Make a choice quickly, mechanic, or she gets hurt," Caleb taunted, and the tension coiled tighter than a noose. Lily shrank against me, yet her spirit planted itself deeper in defiance. "Whatever he wants to do to us, I won't let him take you away from me," she said, voice stronger than the fear that began to creep into my soul. Suddenly, a realization struck me. My love for Lily had galvanized me, merging our souls into something more potent than just a bond. It had evolved into strength, one strong enough to defy the chaos Caleb unleashed. "Enough!" I yelled at Caleb. "This isn't just about playing games. You think you can dismiss us like this?" Caleb chuckled darkly again. "Oh, I can, and I will." "Then just know this: you will never break us," I said, my voice strong and steady. "You've wronged the wrong people." He paused, but only for a heartbeat. He leaned back, allowing a twisted smile to contort his features. "Better think fast, mechanic. Time's running out." Then something shifted again. I felt Lily's pulse quicken next to me, and before I could react, she drew in a deep inhalation and shouted, "Carla, I love you." The words echoed across the empty docks, bold and unwavering. Caleb's amusement faltered for a brief second. "I love you, and am coming for you." As that echo hung in the air, I felt a wave of energy surge between us, a pure connection that broke the shackles Caleb had tried to bind us with. And just as the shadows tightened around my sister, I clutched onto that love as if it were a physical talisman. "We won't let you win," I said, my voice rising at the crescendo of our defiance. Lily's eyes gleamed with tears, but she stood taller, resolute. "Release her, or face the fury of everything we've built together. You can't keep us apart." Caleb's smirk returned, the facade of control woven over indecision. "You've foolishly chosen your side, lovebirds. Soon, you'll find out what it means to suffer." Before I could answer, he signaled the men holding Carla, urging them to tighten their grip. Desperation twisted within me as I prepared to fight back, me heart yanking violently within its cage. But just then, an unexpected figure emerged behind me, a presence that felt warm yet fierce. "Enough!" MIA's voice rang loud and clear, followed by a trio of familiar faces, friends we hadn't seen since the beginning of this hellish encounter. "Mia? What are you doing here?" I breathed, shock ripping through me. "Back up," she spat, her fierce gaze fixed on Caleb's minions, her authority trembling the air. "Or will make you regret it." Caleb's expression shifted from amusement to measured caution, catching the realization that strength comes in numbers. Every heart echoed our shared focus as we melded together, ready to confront not just the darkness looming before us but the collective light we hadn't realized was within us. And as we stood united, our spirits unbroken, the bonds forged through love pulsed around us. "Lily!" I called, my voice a beacon through the chaos. "Together, we'll change the game on him, together." She shouted back, fierce warmth merging with the chaos of our surroundings. Caleb's expression morphed, the shadows now unsettled by the emergence of our friends. From Caleb's smugness came a stammered acknowledgement that perhaps today, we were far from the pawns in his cruel game. And then, just as the tide shifted against him, I felt the ground trembling beneath us, a reminder of the storm approaching, not just from our determination but from the choices that were about to unfold. That I stepped forward, the darkness rushing back to us while my heart raced. "This is it," I murmured to Lily, sensing the fear edged in her gaze, mingled with hope battling against despair. "We're here for each other, we will face this together." The sky itself echoed our resolve, deepening with rich hues of crimson and gold. Every heartbeat grew stronger, weaving us into a tapestry rich with love, an unbreakable chain formulating through fear and disappointment that swirled around us. "The time has come to bring this all to an end," I declared, recognizing every step I took was a chance taken back to fight for our hearts, for those we loved and those who mattered most. "I'll fight with you," Lily replied, strength mirroring my own. "I choose you." All at once, as if the very universe aligned with our heartbeats, a tumultuous rip echoed. Caleb's mask slipped as he recognized that we were more than just victims in his twisted game. In one poignant moment, under the glowing moon and the raw passion beating through us, I felt a pulse of unity ripple for the collective awakening just before the tide fell, and as cars began to flood the docks with headlights flickering from behind, illuminating the path ahead, I knew deep down we were ready to rise against everything that had tried to dismantle us. This fight was far from over, our journey had only just begun. But in that icy night, as we gathered ourselves, our breath woven together like threads in a brilliant tapestry, I made a promise not only to Lily or to Carla but as a reminder that we'd been forged in fire, in love and pain, and those embers would blaze so brightly that darkness would no longer hold dominion over us. Love can exist even in the chaos, and so, hand in hand, together we strode forward, forging a new path through the unknown, shadows unfurling in our wake as we raised our heads to meet the storm head-on. In that darkness, we were unbreakable. No longer scared, no longer lost. Together. And in the heart of chaos, we would create our own light. And I smiled, for love, true love, was worth every heartbeat, every battle against the storm. Above all else, hope remained, unwavering as the moon hung above us, and I whispered, let's go save her.